Hi friends, this is 5 Minutes to Make Sense of the Bible. I'm Joe Hopkins. Today we focus on the Gospel of Luke, chapter 4, verses 16 through 30, which recounts the very beginning of Jesus' public ministry. Let's dive into the context and content of this passage and then ponder some questions that arise from it. The setting for this scene is the synagogue, or Jewish house of worship, in Nazareth of Galilee, which is north of Jerusalem, where Jesus grew up. The very fact that there was a synagogue shows how Nazareth had grown and changed over the centuries. The region surrounding Nazareth, which is called Galilee, was a non-Jewish area for many years, centuries even, but was established as a sort of Jewish settlement by the Jewish Hasmonean kingdom about 100 years before Jesus' birth. While devout Jews would go on pilgrimages to Jerusalem for religious holidays, the synagogue was the center of local religious life most of the time. The Bible says very little about Jesus' childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood, but we can assume that Jesus knew the Nazareth synagogue very well, and the people of the synagogue knew Jesus quite well too. It makes sense then that someone in the synagogue would encourage Jesus, an up-and-coming traveling rabbi at this point, to read from the Hebrew Bible and offer some insights. Jesus does this with a well-known and probably beloved text from the prophet Isaiah, but Jesus adds his own twists. Verses 18 and 19 nearly quote Isaiah chapter 61, but with some important edits. Jesus leaves out a bit about godly vengeance and building up ancient ruins, which his audience may have noticed. While most English language Bibles translate verse 22 to say, "All spoke well of him," it is also possible to translate the verse to mean, "All witnessed against him," which fits better with what comes next. The Jewish audience tries to speak down to Jesus, but Jesus resists. He then refers to two stories in the Hebrew Bible books of 1st and 2nd Kings, in which two different Jewish prophets perform miracles for non-Jewish people. The connections and implications of these stories that might mean that God's favor is much wider than the probably narrow view of the Nazareth synagogue worshippers enrages the audience. They try to cast Jesus off of a cliff to silence him, yet Jesus somehow escapes to preach another day. Now for some questions that hopefully won't make you want to hurl me off of a cliff. First, do you ever wonder what was going on in Jesus' life during those years the Bible doesn't talk about? What do you think were the biggest religious and political influences on Jesus during his formative years? Next, do you know the Bible well enough to know when someone is accurately or inaccurately quoting the Bible? How do you feel when someone misquotes the Bible? Finally, what is the most upset you've gotten over a sermon that someone preached? How did you express your strong emotions at that moment? So there, 5 minutes to make sense of the Bible. I am preaching a sermon based on Luke chapter 4 at Streetsville United Church, so check out our YouTube channel for a recording of our worship services. And as you read the Bible by yourself, pay attention to what piques your curiosity. The Spirit often tries to catch our attention through our curiosity. And as always, while it's good to read the Bible by ourselves, we make the most sense of the Bible when we read the Bible together. Peace, friends.